Hey everyone, welcome back to Old World Legends, where we focus on growing the community. I'm your host, Mike, and with me, as always, is Evan.
The legendary Evan.
That's right, absolutely. So today we're going to talk about our latest grand tournament, our GT event that we had very recently here in Orange
Mm-hmm.
County. Very excited to, spoilers, amazing High Elf list won, and we're very excited to walk you through that list and the other top three as well. Evan, any highlights you'd love to call out before we just dive in?
Well, I mean, I got to win something for once. I won Best Army, so I've never won anything before. So that's
You
great.
have. You won
Yes.
the hearts and minds of your fellow event goers.
I
Absolutely.
want to win my the hearts and minds of my guys who have to take break checks because I always roll like an 11 on those.
Yeah,
That's what
not
I
the
want.
best strategy.
Yeah.
No, it was great, and I think it's fantastic to see the events growing. We hit up to 24 players this time, which is awesome, growing from last year, and new players, veteran players, players who are focused on other tabletop games, but are starting to get excited and come over to Old World. So we just see this momentum building and building, which is just so exciting, and I can't wait for the next one that we'll host later in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. But as always, right, with our events, like I said, we do label it as a GT because that's a label that people are used to in the community. But again, our events are more focused on the event itself, right? Where, yes, we did have trophies for Best General, Best Painted, First, Second, Third, but we also had Best Sportsmanship. Who actually that person, Michael, got to pick the first prize
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the event, which is because that's the most important award as far as we're concerned. We had Best Army, which Evan said. So that was, again, the people, everyone who attended voted for, hey, these are the armies that they played against, and the cool factor of how cool was this army? How did they have fun with the theme? How did it play? Just they thought it was an awesome army. And Evan's army, he brought this fantastic ogre army with these oliphant or elephant conversions for
Yeah,
their
they're
monsters. It was so
Southlands
cool.
ogres, so they're like ogres tribes who migrated south. And the overall theme is that they're kind of like from Dune. They see the Great Maw as a giant sandworm that lives beneath the earth, and it's gonna come up to eat people. I really want to build some kind of a vortex that's like a worm coming out of the ground. I don't know
Ooh.
for something. I don't know what I'll use it as, but it'd be great.
I love that. Well, for maybe a display board in the future, but
Yeah,
it's a
that's
beautiful
good.
army.
Good idea.
The theme was on point. If anyone wants to see some pictures, feel free to join. As always, our Discord, and you
Yeah.
can see a bunch of pictures in there. It's free to join. Love getting more people in the community. And we also had a trivia again,
Yeah.
which was always a big hit. Fun to do some old world trivia. How did you do this time, Evan? Out of 24, what
I
did you
think
think
I
you
actually
What
got
did you
pretty good. I
win?
was like on fourth place or fifth place with the trivia,
Wow.
so I was getting
Okay,
there.
that's pretty impressive. Yeah, had a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Everyone, it's funny. We specifically also do it after round two on day one because everyone, after round three, everyone wants to go have dinner, right? Or go home on day one, right? So doing it after round two is a nice, also, it helps to break up, oh, I just lost a game or I just won a game or what's happening next. It's this really good 15-minute break in between. And it's just a blast to have a lot of fun with that and with pictures and images and just see we want to get a really high success rate of getting the questions correct, but then it's really about who can answer them the fastest. But it's a lot of fun, and
Hmm.
yeah, we could talk all day about all the cool other things we did. But bingo again, of course, Old World Bingo is
Yeah.
always a big hit. So more or less, if you play, you get to game three, four, or five, you should hit a bingo. Is the intent that you get to pick a prize from various prize pools we have, from vortexes to charge tokens to movement trays, all sorts of just fun stuff on top of the giveaways we have for showing up to the event. But let's talk about our winning list. So, our first place, Evan, who took home the trophy this time
Well,
for best general?
it's not that much of a surprise that we have Eric here, good friend of mine, who is an amazing general on the tabletop with his
Mm-hmm.
high elf list.
Mm-hmm.
He'd had a couple of amendments to his list that he's played and won many of our events thus far because of the latest Arcane Journal, providing a couple more magic items, a couple more build options here. I'll point those out as we go. But essentially, we start off with the Prince on the Star Dragon, very
Mm-hmm.
defensive build with Talisman of Protection, Dragon Helm, Opal Amulet. So this is going to give you, your 2 plus armor save dragon who also has the 5 up ward save, and Seed of Rebirth
Yep.
gives you the 5 up regen save. Opal
Mm-hmm.
Amulet is that one time 2 plus ward save, which basically means he can just not care that you have Monster Slayer, because that one time it's going to happen, he'll probably roll the 2.
probably roll the 2. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you still roll the 1, but odds are definitely in your it
Well,
definitely
that's
allows him to be more aggressive.
That's what happened to him at LIVO. He charged
Mhm,
right into a, or no, he set up so that the Gorgon with Frenzy had to charge him. And he was like,
mhm.
I got an Opal Amulet, I don't care. And then he just
I
rolled
got
the,
this.
he got the Monster Slaying hit, and he rolled a 1 on his Opal Amulet save, and he just, that was,
Oh,
that's why he wasn't
it happens.
in the contention for LVO. Otherwise, he probably would be in the top 3 at LVO for sure.
Yeah, but
And
he's an exceptional player, and he's
yeah.
been iterating on this list, and this is a great list. We've seen different tweaks to it over the last 6, 9 months or so that he's been refining it, and he definitely earned, very much earned this overall general first place win here. Congratulations, Eric! And as we see, of course, the dragon just cresting that 500 point mark, right?
Yeah.
TBD in the future whether communities or GW starts recommending or promoting sub 500 points. But for right now, it's the very common to see a version of this, and it's very effective with the list that he puts together.
Yeah, and then the Biting Blade, I happen to know, is on there very specifically because of the Green Knight. If the Green Knight touches your dragon who doesn't have magical attacks, it is a nightmare to have to get rid of him because he
Hmm.
can go into a challenge. So you can't even charge anyone else in there to try to get rid of him. He's stuck fighting the dragon who can't do anything back. So that's in there for that reason and that reason almost exclusively.
Yep,
Biting Blade
that's
is
a good
also
reason.
just the most cost-effective magic item or magic weapon
Hmm.
for that kind of a price. If you only have 20, 30
Yep.
points to spend, definitely the Biting Blade, right?
Yeah.
All right, so then we've got a noble. Now, this is basically his Griffin Noble BSB. This is one of his ways to kind of make sure that he doesn't ever break and flee from combat, along with,
Hmm.
using Courage. You have to use his Courage of an Arion on his dragon, so he can just charge it into your combat res Brock and be like, I'm unbreakable, I don't care, right?
Hmm.
And then
Yep.
you don't have to take that break check that you might still fail, even if you're leadership 10. So the BSB's
Yeah.
there. He's got a Griffin, Seed of Rebirth, Opal Amulet, and so basically, again, just kind of defensive kit. So 3+ armor save, 5 wounds, and that one time only 2+ to try to not die. And
But
that's
you're
one
going
of
to see
the
this pattern throughout his list, right? On a griffin, on a dragon, on steeds, fast, mobile, able to move around the battlefield. The big aspect of his list that's so effective is he's more maneuverable than almost every list that he was going to face out there. So he could choose the engagements he wants. The dice don't always go in his favor, but he has a lot of tricks in here, and it's very effective so that he can position his army, he can outmaneuver, he can get a flank, he can get the characters to the right locations they need to be, he can put enough pressure very rapidly with it. So it's a very effective control list more than anything else.
yeah. So he plays his Archmage with Silver Wand, Battle Magic in the back with the sisters. So he doesn't often contest having to try to dispel or anything, but he'll just be back out of dispel range, throwing out his own fireballs, collecting points that way.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, he's got, like for example, Courage of an Arion on his prince. So now you just have this unbreakable 2+ save dragon in your face, and he uses
Hmm.
Arcane Urgency to make it fly 40 inches, which
Yeah.
is it very often means it's behind you, because
Hmm.
that's how far you can go, right?
It
Um,
doesn't need to charge turn one, right?
no, it
He'll be
doesn't.
setting up the turn two, turn three, turn four positions. Keep in mind, it's a six
Yeah,
turn game. Eric can and does win some of his games by a whole bunch of points if he could potentially steamroll somebody, but he also wins some of his games by just that 100, 200 point margin, right? Because he's able to control the battlefield, and when there's a not optimal situation in front of him, he doesn't charge in, right? He has excellent control and knows how hard his army can or can't hit, and
yeah.
can make sure to use it to the most effective way he can.
And then something you'll notice is that basically everything else in the entire list, nothing's over around 150 points. So we've got the Silver
Hmm.
Helms, they're only 150 points. So if any unit, breaks and flees, gets caught, fails a terror check, you're not losing that many points at once when that happens. So even if that's
Hmm.
so that kind of reduces the luck aspect there. Also, you got Silver Helms who are they can move really fast and then provide a threat, especially when they have a champion with Ruby with the not Ruby Ring but almost Ring of Fury. So now if they
Hmm.
charge into you, they've got initiative. Let's see, 5 for the guy, 6 for being
Yep.
an elf, 3 more for
Yep.
charging you. So they're initiative 9, and then they cast
Hmm.
Hammerhand at you. Okay,
Yep. That's the
and that
goal.
might do more damage than the whole unit of lance guys if it goes off and it
Hmm.
you roll decently. So that's a good threat into small units, or he sends them up to threaten to charge you, especially if for example he needs to send the dragon into something with a champion, and then if you go after them he'll just flee, and then he's got a really good leadership to rally on, and he can just go marching column and then just run 21 inches out of wherever you were as soon as he rallies. So he plays very evasively, and so I often build my armies to counter him specifically because I really don't like having to have big bricks walking around that he can very easily avoid.
Yeah, it's very effective when you build that way, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay as long as you're making sure that hey, you don't need to win by 2,000 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you just need to win by 100, right? Get that 100 to 200 points, control the battlefield, make sure right. In the event, right, he was the only player that won all five of his games. So
Yes.
right, it didn't matter how big his score was. If he could just keep winning the games, he was able to take the win all the way.
Yeah, and so he's got the 2 units of sisters. So each high sister has the 50 points of magic item allotment. That's really big on a shooting unit. So one of them can take the
Hmm.
Ruby Ring of Ruin. The other one can take the Bow of the Seafarer. And I know he told me that the Bow of the Seafarer didn't do anything for him this tournament because he just didn't roll well enough for it to actually hit or to wound
That
anybody.
happens.
But yeah, it's like the problem with this, right, is that five Sisters of Avalorn do more on average to every target in the game than a bolt thrower, and they cost about the
Hmm.
same number of points. And they're
Yes, they
easier,
do.
they're harder to kill as well because they have evasive and they have more wounds. So there's no reason to buy a bolt thrower instead of five Sisters. Why would you?
Yep,
Right?
yep,
That's a
yep.
problem in
It
the game
makes
right now,
sense.
and so that's why they're there. They're almost like little artillery units.
Mhm.
And then we have two Skycutters. Skycutters are very cheap for being what's actually a heavy chariot, and it has some impact hits. It's got the Swift Feather rock that pulls it that can attack you, and it has Swift Strike with an AP2 impact hit. That's
Yeah,
actually pretty
it's
unheard
this
of.
really unique. It has the it's really a hybrid chariot, right? It has
Yeah.
the benefits of a heavy chariot and some of the benefits of a light chariot. It really is. It doesn't have all the benefits, right, in terms of like a great armor save and such, but it hits hard. It's fast and mobile. Those are really powerful combos. And again, with the list that Eric has built here,
Yeah.
he's able to threaten at long range multiple frontages very effectively.
So he often will send, two Skycutters, 2 units of the Silver Helms, all
Hmm.
maximum forward with the dragon, and then looks like he's going to rush you. And depending on what you do, he'll either charge you or he'll back up because
Yep.
he's just waiting for the moment when he does want to do it, and it's not always as soon as possible. Sometimes he's waiting for a certain opportunity, like getting into the flank charge or just
Hmm.
having to combo charge something. That's the kind of thing. So he'll use his pieces very much like chess, where they are waiting in the wings to threaten a 17-inch charge range in front of them, and at any time he can send a combination of them at you.
Yeah, it's very effective, and
Yeah.
and again, it is interesting. I think one of the most impressive things that Eric has done here is remember last year. I know a lot of people were concerned that hey, the high elf book might not have enough strength to it, right, or might not have enough play in the meta. And certainly there are players again who have been working on this list, becoming faction experts, have been hitting game after game after game, refining the list, refining their strategies, and everyone saying that hey, high elves were not competitive. Eric has shown the events both at Old World Legend events and at LVO last year and at other events that they are very competitive in the hands of an expert general, which Eric is. So once again,
Yeah.
congratulations, Eric.
Absolutely. Congratulations. All right, so we'll move on to the next list.
Number two, also
So
an exceptional list.
yeah, so this is Greg Vaughn. He's playing the Dwarven Mountain Holds Royal Clan. Uh,
Hmm.
Essentially, if you're familiar with the Richie Amphlett Yeet list, as he calls it, this is very similar to that. So we have
Hmm.
a very powerful king. He's on Shield Bearer, so that means he's on 6 wounds, and he has Rune of Smiting for D6 damage with his attacks. And the fact that you can put these runes on your Great Weapon and they retain the strength and AP of the Great Weapon is amazing.
Yeah.
I believe in 8th edition that did not work that way. So you had to then buy
No.
strength in it, strength bonuses, as part of your other runes or something to actually get them back up to where they were.
Hmm. That's
Um,
correct.
yeah, and so then Master Rune of Gromwell for that armor save, and then Preservation is one of the best abilities in the game to say, I don't care about multi wounds or Killing Blow, just
Yeah.
go away with that stuff. So now you have to get 6 real for real individual attacks through on this guy who's got very good armor, and you don't really need that much of a word save because you have your BSB providing it to not just
That's
him
right.
but the whole unit. That is
It definitely is built for attrition, right?
right.
It doesn't matter if he doesn't strike first. He's going to win the war of attrition. And when he does strike you back, because you're not going to take him down in a single round of combat, there are very few things in the game that are even capable of doing that, even if you roll exceptionally well. And he's going to hit you back real hard with that D6. He only needs to get a few through, and it does D6 damage.
Yeah.
It's going to leave a mark. It's very
Yeah.
effective combo.
If you fail 2 of your saves against these guys' attacks, on average that's 7 wounds off of you. Which means if you're a 9 wound or a 10 wound Chaos Dragon, That's a lot. Just from
Mm-hmm.
two that go through. So he can spike really, really hard. And that they all count for combat resolution. So if he does 7 wounds to you
That's right.
and he's got a unit with him, now he's combat resolution like 13 and you did one or two
Crazy
to
high.
him, right?
Yeah, and the big thing is that Chaos Dragon's not going to kill him in a single round of combat.
Yeah. So, especially if you got if you tried to do the Ogre Blade combo, then this just says that doesn't do anything to me, right? I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
you also get to combine your runesmith with your battle standard. So you have a runesmith who gets to carry around the runes of spell breaking, but he also gets to be your battle standard, where he's providing the Master Rune of Grungy for the 5-up ward save for him and the whole unit, and Rune of Battle, which I think is the one that gives you one more combat resolution.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
he
similar like a
definitely
war
built
banner
the
rune.
unit to have. It's one of those very combat resolution heavy units. So
Right.
right, it's gonna win combat even if it doesn't do a ton of wounds. And at some point, that king is gonna swing, and eventually he's going to win these fights.
Right, and initiative doesn't matter if you're the tankiest thing in the entire game. I think that this king, while this guy's in the unit with him, and
Hmm.
potentially the anvil buffs are on him, is the hardest thing in the game to kill. Much harder
Yeah,
than dragon. He has toughness 5. He has a two
if you
plus,
can get the combo off.
sometimes re-rollable 2+ armor save. Okay, that means if you
Hmm.
have AP2, he has a 4+ armor save that he re-rolls before he takes the ward. That's a
Yep,
that's like 4-up, then 4-up regen, 4-up ward, or you know what I
that's the
mean?
best defense in the game.
Yeah.
That exists currently.
So,
Yep.
so then we have the Anvil of Doom, and basically you take Rune of Adamant. So now this Anvil of Doom is toughness 10. It's impossible to wound with anything strength 3 or 4 or lower.
Yep.
So you have to be knights with lances, you have to be guys with great weapons, or marauders with flails to even have a chance to hurt it. And they often just
Hmm.
lose combat against him because he actually has a decent number of attacks back, and then they
Hmm.
just give ground and he just goes back to doing whatever he was doing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. It definitely, and again, if it is expensive, but it's very effective. The buffs can be powerful, very powerful, and you have to commit a meaningful unit if you want to go after this. And even if you do commit a meaningful unit, it doesn't mean you're gonna kill it. It might just mean you just stalemate with the anvil and just give ground back and forth, over several turns. So, it's a very good combo piece that it causes the opponent has to decide, how much of my army do I really want to commit to this, or am I just going to have to ignore it and then suffer the fact that it's going to keep doing its thing turn after turn? And
Yeah.
that's a tough choice.
And I think the incorrect play is to try to stay out of its dispel range. You want to be able to dispel it, even if then you give it the chance to dispel you, because the main threat with the dwarves is their runes of spell breaking anyway. So they're going to get
Yeah.
those in your face and just block the important spells. So you need to just have a chance to roll at any of the spells they try, because especially re-rolling your armor saves is nuts. Okay, that is
Yeah, and
insane.
the amount of spellbreak runes they have is effectively, again, you need to play the long game with this. You're not going to win or get through with magic meaningfully
On the
on
first round.
turn 1, 2, or sometimes even 3. You need to get spells off and have him burn his runes of spell breaking, so that hopefully on turn 3, 4, 5, or 6, right later in the game, that you're going to be able to get more of them through to make a difference.
Yep. So then, what else does the list do? Well, we have 28 Longbeards. They've got basically everything you could possibly buy. Drilled is really important here. The great weapon option, hand weapons and shields for the extra armor, especially against shooting. Rune of
Hmm.
Passage for being able to move through cover. We got Rune of Battle for more combo resolution. We've got Strolla's Rune. You spend 25 points just to get to Vanguard 3 extra inches, because it's actually really important just to get
Hmm.
a little
Hmm.
bit closer to you before we march 24. Because
Yep.
there's 24 inches usually. Okay, it's usually between one deployment zone
Yeah.
and the enemies. So if that's how far we can
Often.
move, the extra 3 is actually a big deal, because then now you can start to be, what you really want to do with this unit is to be able to move that 27 inches and then just be 1 inch in front of the enemy, because now they can't get away from you unless they can fly or teleport,
That's
right?
right. Because keep in mind, the dwarf list, right? It wants to get into combat with you with this brick, this Death Star brick in the king, as
Yeah.
fast as possible. That is how it's going to win, by winning its points that way. It's going to win the war of attrition in those fights. It needs multiple turns, so it doesn't want to get into combat with you on turn 5 or 6. It wants to get into combat with you on turn 2 or 3 at the latest. So it is,
Yeah.
every inch matters in bum rushing the opponent and catching them off guard. And most people just haven't fought something like this or don't know what to do. He did face some opponents. Again, Greg, he did an amazing job, came in second. Fantastic job. Congratulations, Greg. But
Yeah.
some opponents did know have seen this before and did know how to, they basically avoid the big brick or slow it down as much as possible. So that's the big strategy here.
Yeah.
It's going to rush you and it's going to surprise the hell out of you. These are the fastest dwarves you have ever seen.
So, I mean, it's basically like the Anvil basically has Arcane Urgency, and Arcane Urgency is already just nuts.
Yep.
So, but the one thing they don't do is they don't fly. So this build kind of breaks if you have a single unit with scouts and you just chuck it in front of the Longbeards because they can't charge you from 12 inches away on that first round. Even if they do charge you, now they're not moving 27. They're only moving whatever they roll in the d6. They're
Hmm.
moving
Hmm.
10 at most, right? Um, or and you can always just flee that charge anyway. So if you just have a unit that's just in their path, now they don't move 27 inches.
Yeah, and we just haven't seen that. I think a lot of players are going to start taking just at least one scout unit because most armies do have the ability to take scouts. Not all, but I think most. And I think you're going to start seeing at least one unit of scouts in each army in case they run into this powerful list because it's a great list. It's super fun to play. And we're going to see this, I think, for a while until people start figuring out how to deal with it.
Right. So then the rest of the list is essentially the Grudge Thrower to just provide more long range support. You got something that kind of can do some D3 wounds onto some, lone, for example, like chariots and things of that nature. The
Hmm.
Dwarf Cart is really important because that's what gives you the 4-inch move, especially on that first turn, just to throw
Yeah.
up the table. And then you just
Hmm.
try to hide this thing, right? And then we have Iron Drakes. And Iron Drakes are just a really strong shooting unit. At the beginning of the edition, we saw a lot of units of 5 Iron Drakes with a Troll Hammer in each squad. That does give
Hmm.
up points easier, though, than having just one
Yes.
big squad. Because the way victory points work is you have to kill 75% of the guys in the squad or the whole thing or make it flee to get any points at all. So the more people in the unit, the harder it is to get any points at all. Most likely they get 0. So if you get 0 from the Longbeards, 0 from the Iron Drakes, and these are the hardest characters to kill in the entire game, where do the points come from?
Yep.
Right?
And that's where people really struggle with, and this is where the reality is one of the best ways to handle this list on the other side is to avoid the Death Star as much as possible. Whether you're throwing scouts in front of it, whether you have a mobile army that can get away from it, and then you need to make up that again. You don't need 2,000 points to win; you need 100 points to win. You need to find a way to go after those Iron Drakes, the Guard Thrower, or the Cart without being caught. But and again, 18 Iron Drakes is no joke when that fires. That's a huge threat. But again, it can be countered. It's very hard to, and I think players were not used to it, and they're going to start learning. Hey, this is a powerful list. This is a really exciting combo, and they need to start to figure out how to deal with it. And in particular, stop going for those 2,000 point wins. Just going for winning the day. You don't have to wipe out the opponent. And in some
Yeah.
cases, like with this dwarf brick, it's almost impossible for most armies to take out that unit. You don't have to though in order to win.
Yeah, so the main weakness is if the reroll armor save spell does not go off and you get a lot of shooting, you can kill all like 20 Longbeards in one turn. In fact, the
Hmm.
Nolan State Troop list with a whole bunch of Outriders massacres this if they don't have that spell off. So you just wait until the spell's not on and then you just gun them down like crazy.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
So there
It
are
definitely
ways
is a
to deal
combo.
with it. It's not a very it's very strong versus a melee focused list essentially.
Yep. And can do very well countering dragons, which
Yeah.
is part of the reason why he was existed. All right, so that was number two, but there was also a number three
All right, so we have
with Alex.
Yeah, so Alex, we have a Warriors of Chaos list here. So, this is a pretty typical Warriors of Chaos build. We essentially have a Chaos Lord with every possible thing you can buy him in the whole universe. We've got the Ogre
Woo.
Blade, we have Mark of Nurgle for defense, we have Favor of the Gods, so you can re-roll that incredibly overpowered Gaze of the Gods table. Um, 5 out of 6
Six,
the options are good. Really?
622 points. That is a decked
Yeah.
out
How
Chaos
much does
Lord.
Gaze of the Gods cost, though, on a character? Can I buy that for some of my ogres or something?
Just play the Chaos Warrior book and it's
Ew.
free.
Vomit. Okay.
It's a fun army. Anyway, yes,
So
decked out
Brazen
character,
Collar,
very powerful.
another yeah. Every list out there that has a 20-point item that gives you magic resistance 2. That's just wild. The fact that you don't have to be Khorne to wear this is
Hmm.
also not fair. Okay, that's what it is. Anyway,
Hey, who said if you're fair? Who said anything about fair?
so this is the Brazen Collar of Khorne that he's
Keep
wearing.
in mind, in the old world lore, they don't know that it's Corn or it's Nurgle or any of that stuff yet. They're still
Yeah,
figuring
but I
out who
still
the
think
Chaos
that
Gods are.
the Chaos Lords do know that, and it would like clash. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
Well,
wearing
I'm
white
not
after
saying
Labor Day.
Alex might
You know?
owe the Chaos Gods a debt in the future that he might
Yeah.
have to repay them because he's offended them. But at least for today, his Chaos Lord will ride to that glorious third place
Yeah, so
podium
I
victory.
just
Well
wanted to point
done,
out
Alex.
we got the Mark of Nurgle for defense, we got the Collar
Hmm.
of Khorne for magic defense, and then we have Enchanting Aura of Slaanesh for
Hmm.
initiative defense. So you just You just dip in your chicken nugget in all three different
I mean,
sauces there.
it could
That's what
just
you're
be
doing.
chaos undivided at that point. He takes gifts from everybody.
That sounds like Chaos United. Okay.
Maybe, maybe. All right,
All right.
moving on.
So the point is this is the scariest character in the game, except
Yep,
maybe the king. So this is the scariest on offense. That's the way I would put it.
for
Right.
sure.
However,
In
I think
terms
the
of the biggest
character.
punch,
Yeah.
this hits hard.
But the king beats this. Is the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, but this can fly around the king and go eat other things and just ignore the king. If the
So
dragon doesn't want to be caught by the king, it can avoid the dwarf king.
right. I'm not sure whether Alex and Greg fought, but if they did, I would bet $80 that Greg would win with that dwarf list. It's very much built to
It's a
counter
great
this.
list.
It's very much built to counter this specifically. So we had a sorcerer lord here. They can only take the barded steeds. They have to be heavy cavalry, which means in order to join this marauder horseman brick, they have to be in open closed door, open order, whatever
Open.
it's called, right?
Yeah,
But we have
not
Mark of
skirmish
Zinch.
formation.
Yeah, so Mark of Zinch here with the Mark of Zinch on the Marauder, so you get to just get that extra +1 to cast, and then your level
Hmm.
4, you've got Battle Magic. You get to have Spell Familiars, you get to have that 5th spell as well, and you have Infernal Puppet to make everyone else not get to cast, because why would anyone else get to have fun? And then you have Meteoric Iron, because you get to wear armor. And you're
Yeah,
just... Oh, and
he's a
by the
real
way,
sorcerer lord.
yeah, and this guy's got the melee stats of an Empire General. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, but again, they're still not that great. But it does
Yeah,
mean that something small in terms of a light cavalry unit or a small
yeah.
skirmishing unit is very unlikely to be able to punch through. But at the
Mhm.
same time, again, if you can catch this with, you don't need a dragon. Smaller things, a 5-man heavy cavalry unit, a smaller monster, something like a wyvern or a manicore or something like that. Or even just if you can get the war machine angles on this thing, that unit will fold
Yeah,
real
it's
quick. So
we've
there
got
are
what,
definitely, it
5
has
plus armor save.
weaknesses.
We have 5
Yeah,
up on
it's
these
very,
marauders. Yeah,
if they had given leadership. Yeah, so again, you as long as so that's a challenge for him, right? He
hmm
wants to get it is maximize its center of the table, or at least its positioning for the infernal puppet. So he wants
hmm
to get within 24-inch range. He wants to get close, and that's the challenge where he wants to get as close, but he doesn't want you to counterpunch this or countercharge this or shoot it off the table. So it definitely has weaknesses
for
that
sure. Yeah,
he has to work around.
yeah. And another weakness is you're not looking 360. When you're joining this unit, you can only see the
Hmm.
front. Now, when you're focusing on magic missiles, which you can move before casting, you don't care as much, especially with open order.
Hmm.
So he's got the magic missile from the blue fire, and then he has potentially fireball as well. There's an 87% chance he gets both,
Good
so
odds.
that's quite scary.
Yeah, it's going to be a missile platform for sure.
Yeah, and then what's the rest of your core? Well, you have 2 units of Chaos Warhounds, which are some of the most cost-effective units in the game. At just running forward, they can go marching column. Somehow they know how to march.
Hmm.
I don't know how they do know how to do
They get in the way of things.
that.
They slow things down for 30 points. It's a fantastic contextual tool you can use to manipulate the battlefield, at least for a turn or two.
Right, and then we have 15 Forsaken. Forsaken have a ward save for some reason, so they got a 5-up armor, 5-up ward save. Then they have D3+1 attacks on the charge. So they're just kind of outshining regular Chaos Warriors right now because they get this ward save that they just I don't know where they got it from. I think
Well,
they got it
keep in
from the
mind,
same
the
place.
Forsaken, they were, I mean, these guys were chosen, and then they got
Ah,
one gifts too many, and boom, they're not quite spawned yet, but they're on the way to damnation and spawndom. So that's why they have the ward save, because they
yeah.
were elite. They're not so elite at the moment. They're
They
Forsaken.
do have a better word
Um,
save than Chosen, though.
They do. So they're an interesting unit, and it's interesting over the last year or so seeing people who have doubled down on them, seeing
Yeah.
people who have taken them back, and it's effectively the random nature. Because again, if they roll average, you're going to be really happy they were cost effective. If they roll above average, you're going to be stoked. They could be an MVP unit on the table. But if they roll below average with the random factor on them, right, they fold, right,
Yeah.
and they're going to underperform, and so that's they have the potential to hit well above their cost point weight class, but they also have that random factor where they might underperform, and if they're critical to your plans, it could cost you the battle. But again, at only 285 points for a core slot, you're
And they're
not
stubborn.
sacrificing a lot of points. Yeah,
Yeah, the
I
stubborn
think
helps a
they're really
lot.
cool, and honestly, they're also really fun models to make. So I love seeing Forsaken on the
Yeah.
table.
The impetuous is probably the only downside. So if I park some of my elves in front of them and give them,
Hmm.
walk between worlds or something like that, and then I think they probably do have ensorcelled hand weapons because they're chaos. So maybe they
Yeah,
don't care
but
about that.
there are counters to them. Again,
Yeah,
it's the random factor of, hey, you just roll how many attacks? Ones, right? And
yeah.
just now you're way overpaying for what the output's going to be.
All right, and then we've got Dragon Ogres. Okay, I mean, what the most cost-effective unit in the game, except maybe the Gigantic Chaos Spawn, which is also one of the most cost-effective units for what its stats are. It's just if you're playing points for stats, it's just it's on sale. It's cheap.
For pure raw stats, Dragon Ogres are, I think, point for point stat wise. They're not as points as effective in terms of special abilities as the Pegasus Knights.
Right.
But in terms of raw stats, I
Yeah.
think currently Dragon Ogres are the most cost effective thing in the game for pure stat to point ratio.
Yeah, for some of my Beastmen lists, I take like and we're seeing this actually a little bit more commonly with Beastmen armies, is that they'll take a unit of like 6 Dragon Ogres
Yeah,
because
big
one
unit.
of the things you can do is you can just put them in a big line and say, okay, you're vanguarding Pegasus Knights, charge this. Go for it.
Yeah,
You're going to kill 2, and then you're going to get hit with 4 of these things. So,
that's right.
do you actually want that to happen? And so
They
you have to
can't
have
kill
just
them
one
all. It's
big.
too many.
Right, you have to just have one big unit to make that happen, but, it works.
Yeah, well, but that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people starting to figure out what are the Pegasus Knights can be countered, and we're starting to see that show up more and more in the meta in different lists of different ways to counter them. And certainly, a big unit of Dragon Ogres is an effective way to counter Pegasus Knights.
Absolutely. So this is just a very efficient chaos list. I mean, it's good
Yep,
and it's played well. It's good.
it's a great list. Alex is an exceptional player. He did great coming in third. It was tough competition. I think we're going to see him plays and higher in the podiums in the future as well. And I'm excited to see where this list goes in the future. And potentially, there's the hope that, as we saw when the Arcane Journal for Warriors came out, gave some new toys for Beastmen. I'm sure they're also hoping when the Beastmen Arcane Journal comes out, maybe we'll see some new toys for Chaos Warriors. So the time will tell later this year.
Oh yeah, I really want Kolek. He's my guy. Give me a
That'd be
Kolek
cool.
model.
All right, so that's wrapping up our review of the winners for
Yeah.
our grand tournament in Orange County. Very excited for the Old World Legends Open. Again, if you've gotten this far in the video, please do like, share, and subscribe. Help us get the word out there. Beyond that, Evan, any last words?
Just you gotta stay legendary.
All right, we'll see you all next time.
All right.
Bye.